Hashi stepped in front of flying arrows to save the alien girl. The reward was worth every scar. The morning sun cast long shadows across the alien marketplace of Velter as Captain Marcus Kane adjusted his breathing apparatus and checked his weapon diagnostics. 3 months had passed since the human diplomatic mission arrived on this distant world, and tensions between the various alien factions had only grown worse. The Veltari were a proud species with elongated limbs and crystalline features that caught the light in mesmerizing patterns. Their society was complex with multiple castes and strict social hierarchies that Marcus found difficult to navigate despite his extensive training. Marcus had been assigned as security detail for the human embassy, but found himself spending more time mediating disputes than actually protecting anyone. The Veltari appreciated human neutrality in their conflicts, and often sought his counsel on matters that seemed trivial to him, but were apparently crucial to their culture. Today was supposed to be a routine patrol through the merchant district, where humans were generally welcomed, and trade flowed freely between species. As he walked through the crowded bazaar, Marcus noticed the usual mix of Veltari civilians going about their daily business. Merchants hawked their wares in melodic tones, while customers examined goods with their sensitive crystalline appendages. The air hummed with the constant low-frequency communication that the Veltari used for private conversations. Marcus had learned to ignore this background noise, though his universal translator occasionally picked up fragments of their discussions. Near the center of the marketplace, he spotted a young Veltari female who appeared to be in distress. She was smaller than most of her kind, with pale blue crystalline formations along her arms that marked her as belonging to the artisan caste. Her body language suggested fear as she glanced nervously around the crowd. Marcus approached slowly, not wanting to startle her further. The girl looked up at him with large, multifaceted eyes that reflected the ambient light like precious gems. She spoke in rapid Veltari, but his translator struggled with her dialect. From what he could understand, she was trying to explain that someone was following her and she felt unsafe. Marcus scanned the crowd and noticed several Veltari males from what appeared to be the warrior caste moving purposefully through the market in her direction. Without hesitation, Marcus positioned himself between the girl and the approaching figures. His hand moved instinctively to his sidearm, though he hoped the situation would not escalate to violence. The warrior caste Veltari were known for their aggressive nature, and their disputes often turned deadly. Marcus had witnessed several such confrontations during his time on the planet, and knew that intervention by outsiders was rarely welcomed. The lead warrior approached with his crystalline formations glowing bright red, which Marcus recognized as a sign of extreme agitation. The creature stood nearly 2 meters tall, with sharp angular features that seemed designed for intimidation. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. The warrior demanded that Marcus step aside and allow them to retrieve the girl who he claimed had violated sacred customs by creating art that depicted forbidden subjects. The girl pressed closer to Marcus, and he could feel her trembling despite her attempts to appear brave. Her translator finally managed to convey her side of the story, and Marcus learned that she had created sculptures celebrating peace between different castes, something that apparently threatened established order. Marcus realized that this was about more than just artistic expression. The girl represented a growing movement among younger Veltari, who questioned the rigid social structure that had governed their society for millennia. Her art had become a symbol of resistance, and the warrior caste saw her as a threat to their authority. The situation was complicated by the fact that human interference in internal Veltari affairs was strictly forbidden by the terms of their diplomatic agreement. As more warriors gathered around them, Marcus found himself at the center of a confrontation that could have serious diplomatic consequences. The girl looked up at him with pleading eyes, and he knew that whatever happened next would define not only her fate, but potentially the future of human-Veltari relations. The crowd had begun to take notice, and Marcus could see other aliens watching the scene unfold with obvious interest. The tension in the air was palpable as Marcus weighed his options. He could step aside and allow the warriors to take the girl, thus avoiding any diplomatic incident, but potentially condemning her to punishment or worse. Alternatively, he could stand his ground and risk creating an international incident that could jeopardize the entire human mission on Velter. The choice seemed impossible, but as he looked down at the frightened girl beside him, Marcus knew what he had to do. The lead warrior stepped forward, and Marcus could see the deadly intent in his crystalline eyes. The creature's hand moved to a weapon that resembled a crossbow, but was clearly more advanced than anything humans had developed. Other warriors began to spread out in a flanking formation, and Marcus realized that they were preparing for combat. The girl whispered something in her native language, and his translator told him she was thanking him for his kindness. Marcus took a deep breath and made his decision. He would not abandon the girl regardless of the consequences. The human spirit had always been defined by the willingness to stand up for those who could not defend themselves, and he would not betray that legacy now. As he squared his shoulders and prepared to face whatever came next, Marcus felt a strange sense of peace, knowing that he was doing the right thing even if it cost him everything. The lead warrior raised his weapon, and Marcus saw the deadly projectile being loaded into the firing chamber. The girl pressed against his back, and he could feel her rapid heartbeat through the contact. Time seemed to slow as Marcus prepared himself for what was about to happen. The warrior's finger moved toward the trigger, and Marcus knew that in seconds the situation would explode into violence that could change everything. As the first arrow was released, Marcus threw himself in front of the girl and felt the sharp pain as the projectile struck his chest. The impact knocked him backward, but he managed to keep his footing as more arrows flew through the air. His body armor absorbed much of the damage, but several projectiles found gaps in his protection. Pain flared through his shoulder and leg as he continued to shield the girl with his body. The girl cried out in her native language, and Marcus could hear the anguish in her voice as she saw him taking damage meant for her. He gritted his teeth and maintained his position, even as more arrows struck his armor and flesh. The warriors seemed surprised by his willingness to sacrifice himself for an alien, and their attack began to lose coordination as they struggled to understand his motivation. Marcus felt blood running down his arm, but ignored the pain as he focused on protecting the girl behind him. Each arrow that struck him was one that did not reach her, and he found strength in that knowledge. The crowd around them had begun to react, with some aliens calling for the warriors to stop, while others seemed to encourage the violence. This situation was rapidly spiraling out of control, and Marcus knew that soon other factions would become involved. Through the pain and chaos, Marcus heard the sound of approaching footsteps and turned to see a group of Veltari elders pushing through the crowd. These were members of the ruling council, who rarely appeared in public, and their presence brought immediate silence to the marketplace. The warriors lowered their weapons and stepped back as the elders approached. Marcus remained standing despite his wounds and kept the girl safely behind him. The eldest of the council members spoke in a voice that carried absolute authority. His crystalline formations glowed with a soft golden light that Marcus had never seen before. The elder addressed the warriors in formal Veltari that was difficult for the translator to process, but the meaning was clear. The attack was to cease immediately, and all parties were to remain in place until the matter could be properly adjudicated. Marcus felt relief wash over him as the immediate danger passed, but he could feel his strength beginning to fade from blood loss. The girl moved around to face him, and he saw tears streaming down her crystalline features. She spoke rapidly in her native tongue, and though he could not understand all of her words, he could sense her gratitude and concern for his well-being. Her hands glowed with a soft blue light as she pressed them against his wounds. To Marcus's amazement, he felt warmth spreading through his body, and the pain began to subside. The girl possessed some kind of healing ability that she was using to help him recover from his injuries. The elders watched this display with obvious interest, and Marcus realized that the girl was more than just an artist. She belonged to a rare subset of Veltari who possessed natural healing powers, something that was both revered and feared by their society. The lead elder approached and examined Marcus's wounds with professional interest. He spoke in careful human standard, explaining that the girl was named Kira, and that she was indeed a special individual whose abilities had been hidden from the warrior caste. Her art was not just creative expression, but a way of channeling her healing powers into physical form. The sculptures she created actually possessed therapeutic properties that could help injured Veltari recover from trauma, both physical and emotional. Marcus looked down at Kira with new understanding as she continued to heal his wounds. Her defiance of the warrior caste was not just about artistic freedom, but about her right to use her gifts to help others. The rigid social structure of Veltari society had tried to suppress her abilities because they threatened the established order. Healers who could work outside the official medical hierarchy represented a challenge to the control mechanisms that kept the various castes in line. As Kira worked, Marcus felt not just his physical wounds healing, but something deeper as well. The stress and isolation he had experienced during his time on Velter began to fade as her powers worked on levels he had not even realized were damaged. The constant pressure of being a human in an alien society had taken its toll, and Kira's healing touch was addressing needs he had not known existed. The elder explained that Kira's actions in the marketplace had been a deliberate attempt to reveal her abilities to the general population. She had grown tired of hiding her gifts and wanted to use them openly to help any Veltari who needed healing regardless of their caste status. The warrior caste had moved to suppress her because they feared that her abilities would undermine their authority and create chaos in the established social order. Marcus realized that by protecting Kira, he had inadvertently become part of a larger struggle for social change on Velter. The girl's healing powers represented hope for a more egalitarian society where individuals were valued for their contributions rather than their caste affiliations. His willingness to sacrifice himself for her had demonstrated that even aliens could recognize the value of her gifts and the importance of protecting those who sought to help others. As Kira finished healing his wounds, Marcus felt stronger than he had in months. The experience had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. The physical scars would remain as reminders of the day he chose to stand up for what was right, but the deeper healing she had provided was perhaps even more valuable. He looked into her multifaceted eyes and saw a reflection of his own commitment to justice and protection of the innocent. The elder informed Marcus that the council had decided to officially recognize Kira's abilities and grant her protected status as a healer. This meant that she would be free to practice her art and use her powers without interference from the warrior caste. In return, she would be expected to provide healing services to all Veltari, regardless of their social status. The decision represented a significant shift in Veltari society, and Marcus realized that his actions had helped catalyze a historical change. Kira spoke to Marcus in halting human standard, explaining that she wanted to do something special for him in return for his sacrifice. She asked him to visit her workshop the following day, where she would create something unique that would serve as a permanent bond between them. Marcus accepted her invitation, though he had no idea what to expect from such an arrangement. The marketplace began to return to normal as the various factions dispersed and went about their business. Marcus noticed that many Veltari were looking at him with new respect, and several approached to thank him for his courage. The incident had apparently resonated throughout the alien community, and his willingness to protect one of their own had earned him a level of acceptance that no amount of diplomatic protocol could have achieved. As Marcus walked back toward the human embassy, he reflected on the events of the day. He had started the morning as a simple security guard, but had ended it as a catalyst for social change on an alien world. The scars on his body would heal, but the memory of Kira's grateful expression would remain with him forever. He had learned that sometimes the right choice required sacrifice, but that the rewards could be greater than anything he had imagined. The following day, Marcus made his way through the winding streets of Velter toward Kira's workshop. The building was located in the artisan district, where creativity and craftsmanship were valued above social status. As he approached the entrance, he could hear the soft humming sound that Veltari made when they were concentrating deeply on their work. The door opened before he could knock, and Kira greeted him with what he had learned was the Veltari equivalent of a smile. The workshop was filled with sculptures of incredible beauty and complexity. Each piece seemed to glow with its own inner light, and Marcus could feel a sense of peace and well-being emanating from them. Kira explained that these were her healing sculptures designed to provide comfort and recovery to anyone who spent time in their presence. She had been working on them for years while hiding her abilities from the authorities. In the center of the workshop stood a piece that was clearly different from the others. It was a sculpture of two figures, one human and one Veltari, standing together against a backdrop of swirling energy. The human figure bore a striking resemblance to Marcus, and he realized that Kira had been working on this piece since their encounter in the marketplace. The level of detail was extraordinary, and he could see every scar and mark that he had received during the arrow attack. Kira gestured for Marcus to approach the sculpture, and as he drew closer, he began to feel a strange resonance between himself and the artwork. She explained that this piece was not just a representation of their meeting, but an actual bonding artifact that would create a permanent connection between them. If he chose to accept it, they would be linked in a way that would allow them to share strength and healing across any distance. Marcus looked at the sculpture with wonder and some trepidation. The idea of being permanently connected to an alien being was both fascinating and somewhat frightening. Kira sensed his uncertainty and explained that the bond would enhance both of their abilities without changing who they were fundamentally. She would be able to channel healing power to him whenever he was injured or in distress, while he would be able to provide her with the strength and courage that came naturally to humans. The offer was unprecedented in human-Veltari relations, and Marcus realized that accepting it would make him the first human to be formally bonded with an alien in such a way. The diplomatic implications were staggering, but as he looked at Kira's hopeful expression, he knew that this was about more than politics or protocol. This was about two individuals who had found something precious in each other and wanted to preserve it forever. Marcus reached out and placed his hand on the sculpture, feeling the warm energy that flowed through it. As his fingers made contact with the crystalline surface, he felt a surge of power that seemed to flow directly into his soul. The sensation was indescribable, but he could sense Kira's presence in his mind as a warm and comforting presence. The bond was forming, and he knew that from this moment forward, they would be connected in ways that transcended the boundaries between their species. As the bonding process completed, Marcus felt a profound sense of completion that he had never experienced before. The isolation and stress of his assignment on Velter melted away as he realized that he now had a true companion who understood him on the deepest level. Kira's healing abilities flowed through the bond, strengthening his body and mind, while his human resilience and determination provided her with the courage to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The sculpture continued to glow with soft light as Marcus and Kira stood together in the workshop. Both of them could feel the power of their new connection and the possibilities it represented for the future. The bond would allow them to work together in ways that had never been possible before, combining human strength with Veltari healing to create something greater than either could achieve alone. Kira explained that the bond would also extend their lifespans, allowing them to share the longevity that came naturally to her species. Marcus would age much more slowly than normal humans, while retaining all of his natural abilities and gaining access to healing powers that would make him nearly invulnerable to injury. In return, his human vitality would help keep Kira strong and healthy for centuries to come. As Marcus considered the full implications of what had happened, he realized that his life had been fundamentally changed by his decision to protect Kira in the marketplace. The scars he had received from the arrows were nothing compared to the incredible gift he had been given in return. The bond between them represented not just a personal connection, but a new form of cooperation between their species that could change the course of history. unarmed bonding, LING, spread quickly through both human and Veltari communities, creating excitement and concern in equal measure. Some viewed it as a dangerous precedent that could lead to complications in interspecies relations, while others saw it as a breakthrough that could lead to deeper understanding between their peoples. Marcus found himself at the center of attention from diplomats, scientists, and curious citizens from both species. Despite the external pressures, Marcus felt more at peace than he had in years. The bond with Kira provided him with a sense of purpose and belonging that had been missing from his life. Together, they began to work on projects that combined human technology with Veltari healing arts, creating new possibilities for medical treatment and recovery. Their partnership became a symbol of what could be achieved when different species worked together with mutual respect and understanding. As months passed, Marcus discovered that the bond had given him abilities he had never imagined possible. He could sense the emotional states of other beings and provide comfort to those in distress. His physical capabilities had been enhanced to levels that surpassed normal human limits, while his mental faculties had been sharpened by exposure to Veltari thought patterns. The transformation was gradual but profound, changing him into something that was still recognizably human, but enhanced in ways that made him more effective in his role as a protector and healer. Kira blossomed under the influence of their bond, developing new artistic abilities that allowed her to create works of unprecedented beauty and power. Her sculptures became sought after throughout the galaxy as beings from many species discovered their healing properties. The workshop expanded into a center for interspecies cooperation, where individuals from different worlds could come together to share knowledge and find healing. The warrior caste that had initially threatened Kira gradually came to accept her new status, as more and more Veltari benefited from her healing abilities. The social changes that had begun with Marcus's intervention in the marketplace continued to ripple through their society, creating new opportunities for cooperation and understanding between different groups. The rigid caste system began to evolve into something more flexible and inclusive. Marcus's role as a human diplomat was transformed by his bond with Kira. He became a bridge between species, facilitating communication and understanding in ways that had previously been impossible. His unique perspective as a bonded human allowed him to see similarities between different alien cultures that others missed. Diplomatic missions that had once seemed hopeless became opportunities for through negotiations and lasting agreements. The scars from the arrows that had struck him in the marketplace became symbols of honor among both humans and Veltari. Young members of both species would point to them as examples of the courage required to stand up for what is right regardless of the personal cost. Marcus wore them with pride, knowing that they represented not just his own sacrifice, but the beginning of a new era in interspecies relations. As years passed, the bond between Marcus and Kira deepened and strengthened, creating possibilities that neither had imagined when they first met. Their partnership became legendary throughout the galaxy, inspiring others to seek similar connections across species boundaries. The workshop became a pilgrimage site for those seeking healing and understanding, while their story was told and retold as an example of how courage and compassion could overcome any obstacle. The reward for Marcus's moment of courage in protecting Kira had indeed been worth every scar he had received. The bond had given him not just enhanced abilities and extended life, but a purpose and meaning that transcended his original mission. Together, they had created something beautiful and lasting that would continue to benefit countless beings for generations to come. The arrows that had struck him in that marketplace had been the beginning of a journey that led to wonders beyond imagination and a love that crossed the boundaries between worlds.